There's a reason that some space games don't actually feel like you're in space, and it has nothing to do with realism, travel time or anything like that. Instead, it's often about the very subtle and subjective sensation of feeling. What do I mean by that? Well, there's a lot of great games out there that make you feel like you are somewhere. Maybe that is a boat with the sea around you, or the sensation of being in the sky in a plane. Some games even make you feel like you're in the wild frontier on horseback. And here's the thing, not all of these games are built around their travel mechanics, but they all understand that the environment should come through the vehicle, that the world around you should feel like the place you're actually in. And for me, this is something that space games should take very seriously. And there's actually some amazing examples of this, such as Elite Dangerous and X4 Foundations, and many other examples as well, because after all, space is also an environment too. So the question for me is that if some games can make you feel like you're in the boat on an ocean, then why do some games with a spaceship make you feel like you're not really anywhere, not even in space? And listen, I think this is very important because it does determine whether or not a space game actually feels like a space game. I'm sure many of you know exactly the feel I mean. Let me know how you feel about this in the comments section below. What sort of space games out there do you feel actually address this? For me, I think a really good example is Elite Dangerous, and it really does stand out amongst many of the other space games out there, and there's a very specific reason for this. Elite Dangerous ultimately understood something that very few games actually have pulled off successfully, and that is the emptiness of space is the environment. You can feel it through the ship. And that means when you're in Supercruise, you can feel the universe around you. You can feel the gravity wells from nearby planets and stars that affect your speed. I could go on here for a list about all the different game mechanics that are in here to give you that sensation, but here's the thing, it's not really about the mechanics themselves. I don't want to take all that away. What it's about is the feeling that those gameplay loops give you, and here's a really nice example. That is Supercruise Overdrive in Elite. And this is where it all kind of really comes together as a great example, because when you engage Supercruise Overdrive, the ship really accelerates hard. You go past 1,000 times the speed of light, past 2,000. The ship starts to shake. Heat builds up, your controls suffer interference. And the way you hear players talk about this online is very interesting to me, because most people don't just talk about the game mechanics, they don't talk about fuel management or thermal load. Instead, what you hear are things like flying by the seat of the pants. And you hear people say they can't look away from the screen, you're riveted to keeping the ship under control. And ultimately, you can feel the void of space rushing by your ship, and your ship straining back against that. In essence here, what people are describing is just one aspect, one variety, one way of what space can feel like. And we'll talk more about those examples further into the video. One thing they all have in common is that they managed to create that sense of presence, that sensation of being in space. And all of these things really come down to intent, down to the implementation more than anything else. This isn't a thing about budget, it's all about the design of the way the developers want you to feel space, the way they want you to feel the environment through the vehicle that you're actually using. And that could be a weight, it could be the ship feeling responsive to you, it could be many different things, it could be distance, it could be danger. There's many different ways to get this, to convey this sensation of being in space. And this brings me on rather nicely to Starfield. Because the Free Lanes update, as nice as it actually is, and I do enjoy flying around in between the planets here, but it is missing something. It's an update that lets you want to fly between planets. You do have full control of the ships, you can point it absolutely wherever you want and you can fly there freely. It's like I say, the thing that Starfield has been missing. But here's a very fun challenge for you, and I urge you to go and do this. So let me know in the comments section what you find. With this latest update from Starfield, there's very few people actually talking about the experience of flight in space. Instead, what you see a lot of people talking about online is the ability to get up out of your pilot seat whilst in space. Maybe go do a bit of crafting, maybe go talk to some NPCs, maybe some planning or anything else. They talk about so many opportunities and things to do in space, perhaps even finding different points of interest. One thing very, very few people are talking about is the experience of what it's like to be in space itself. In other words, it feels to me, and this is my sensation when playing the game as well, that space itself doesn't really come through as a feeling or as an environment. You're moving through it, but you don't feel the void around you, not in the same way you do in most other space games. Whether it's Elite, whether it's Star Citizen, whether it's Everspace 2, they've all got their own unique way of conveying that feel, but Starfield seems to be lacking that. Now, don't get me wrong, this isn't a criticism at Starfield, because at the end of the day, Starfield is an RPG and not a space game. But what I wanted to do today is, and I've been thinking about this quite deeply, is really talk about why some games feel like you're in space whilst other games don't, even though they all have spaceships. And to be fair, there is an argument that some people say that, well, Starfield isn't really a space game, and yes, I use that point myself, and I do understand that argument. Yet there is a counterpoint to that, and it's a very reasonable one. Witcher 3 is also an RPG, and riding through Valen on the back of Roach still feels like crossing the world. It isn't a horse riding simulator. And the same is true of Red Dead Redemption 2. That also isn't a riding simulator, yet the wild frontier feels beneath you. The sensation of being out there in a lone environment on the back of a horse is deeply profound. And none of these games were built around their travel mechanics, yet they all understood that crossing those environments should feel like being in those environments, and the sensation of using whatever vehicle you're using, whether that's a horse, vehicle, but still gets you from A to B, whether it's a car, whether it's a boat, all of them need to feel like what they're meant to really feel like. So I think that's really all I'm trying to say here. When a game puts you in a vehicle and asks you to cross a world, whether that's space, whether that's the ocean, whether that's the mountains, the thing that matters the most is whether you feel like you're out there on the way, that you're actually travelling through that environment that this vehicle is a part of. So, why do some games achieve this and others don't? This then is something I've been thinking about for quite a while at this point, and I really think it comes down to whether the environment in itself actually participates in that journey. And this is what I mean. In games that feel right, space is doing something to you whilst you fly through it. For example, in Elite, gravity wells pull at your speed. Supercruise Overdrive makes your ship strain against the void. The environment is pushing back, and because it pushes back, it can feel like it's actually there. And even in Everspace 2, which has a much more arcade approach and planets are unrealistically close together, players still describe the feeling of weight of space as they travel. And the environment here actually participates. It responds to you, and you respond to it in turn. This is exactly the same in No Man's Sky, when you get in your ship, take off from the surface, travel through the atmosphere and leave space, looking down at the curvature of the planet as you head on into the depths. This isn't about seamless atmospheric re-entry, it's not about any of that, at least not in the direct sense. It's about, instead, a simple case experience of feeling like you are in a spaceship and that you're travelling through space, and the game giving you the ability to actually experience that. And yes, each game may achieve that in different ways. And that comes back to Starfield. Starfield's new cruise mode. Here, space doesn't do anything to you. The ship handles the same whether you're near a star or deep in empty space. Nothing changes. There's no resistance, there's no feedback. In short, you're inside a world, a galaxy, that doesn't even acknowledge you. The approach Bethesda took to this was to fill that void with content, with encounters and points of interest that pop up along the way. But filling the void is not the same as feeling the void. You can scatter 100 points of interest through empty space, and space will still feel empty if it never actually pushes back with you, if it never interacts against your ship. And this is where I think this is where there's quite some confusion when it comes to space games. Because when players say they want to feel the space, the assumption is often that they want to feel the realism. But the thing is, that's not always the case. It's quite often not the case, in fact. When players say they want to feel like they're in space, they're not saying that they want distances to feel realistic. They're saying the actual opposite, and at least Supercruise Overdrive actually proved the opposite. It made space travel faster, and space felt all the more intense for it. And Everspace 2 has tiny systems, and you still feel like you're out there in the void. This feeling has nothing at all to do with realism, and it has nothing to do with how long journeys take. But it does have everything to do with how the environment interacts with you along that journey, however long or short that may be. So I think that's the piece that often gets missed here. Space itself, of course, is invisible. It's big, it's large, and it's absolutely empty. And these are always the things people keep focusing on when they talk about space games. But that's the point, that's where the confusion comes in. There is nothing to see in the way that you can see an ocean, for example, or a mountain range. And so when a game gets you to feel that space, that gets you to feel that void, to actually feel like you're out there in the dark, well, that's a genuine achievement, because it means that the developers found a way to make nothing feel like something. Let me know what you think about this in the comments section below. As always, thanks for watching. Do take a look at the other video on the screen right here. Take care, and I'll catch you next time.